Welcome to the Nomad Futurist podcast, where ideas shape the future and visionaries redefine what's possible. Join us as we dive deep into the evolution of technology, society, and human potential, spotlighting the voices driving change and reimagining our world. Connect with us and join us at media.nomadfuturist.org. The future is a story we write together. Let's kick it off. Here are your hosts, Phil and Nabeel. Hello. Welcome to Nomad Futurist. This is your co-host, Nabeel Mahmood, calling in from Waikoloa, Hawaii.
This is your co-host, Phillip Koblence from Montclair, New Jersey.
And I'm Scott Charter, in from Denver, Colorado.
Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's been a bit of an overdue since we last met at PTC, which is Pacific Telecommunication. For listeners that don't know what it is, it's an annual conference in the state of Hawaii, the only time I don't get to travel much. Scott and I had a lovely time, mutual friends through Alyssa Miller, who's actually one of our advisory board members, made the introduction, and we had the opportunity of getting Scott on board as one of our ambassadors as well. So before we get started, Scott, do you mind sharing with our audience at a high level who Scott Charter is and what do you do these days?
Great. Yeah. I'm Scott Charter. Let's see. 1993. I'm living in a VW bus. 1971 VW bus, going to law school. Only homeless guy going to DU Law at the time. And I couldn't really afford to continue in law school unless I got a side gig. So I got a job working in technology for no other reason than they needed someone that spoke Spanish. So I went to work for Charlie Ergen at EchoStar, which is Dish Networks now. And because of that, I was able to get into an apartment and get on a VW bus, which was cool. And finished up law school and stayed in tech. Let's see, was in the telecom space for years. And then in 2002, I went out on my own, same seat here in Greater Denver with my dog and a credit card. And I started a business called WBS Connect. And I sold large capacity bandwidth to large content providers, Friendster, Sony's PlayStation, early Facebook. And we had no real money to pay a staff. So we went channel partner as our route to really start to go to market. Built up a channel partner about a network of about 125 agents. And then ultimately our business really started to grow, got it up to about 50 employees, and then sold it in 2009 to GTT. And that was my first exit. But as you all know, as an entrepreneur, when you sell a business, you have the earnout. That earnout was the worst 2 years of my life because I then had to work for someone else's corporate culture and they had to it was very suit and tie. And I'm a Western gunslinger from Colorado.
I think the term of art for that is golden handcuffs. Is that what they call?
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Phil, that's the suit and tie term.
There was one thing and we pulled the string and we went right into it. That was the fastest entry into it was 1993, the best of times, the worst of times. My only follow-up question before you get past that story is, are you suggesting that there are more homeless people now going to DU for law school?
Yes, because it's gotten more expensive to try to go to private law schools. Very tough.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
So
all right. I didn't mean to interrupt.
All the VWs parked in front of the uni are all law schools.
Either that or Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
All right. So you get done with this exit. You are in the transition period with your golden handcuffs. What's next?
Went out and started to consult on different technologies that were in and around the data center. Got myself an office on the National Renewable Energy Labs campus in Golden, Colorado, and really started to dial in on trying to come up with greener technology for the data center. And early on got connected up with a technology that they needed help doing go-to-market. And I brought it into a couple of data centers that we know quite well, some very large logos, with a device to save a lot of water and do other stuff tangential to the facilities. Built out another company with my former business partner called Mod Mission Critical, built into another 50 so data centers, and then sold my half of that company ultimately, and then came to Oracle about 7 years ago. Recruited in to be a subject matter expert on data networking, data centers, and the like. For the past 2 years, my title has more or less been AI and cloud strategy. So I get to go around and talk about what's going on in AI. And what it really meant that I got to do was just to spend more time than I even did in law school reading. I just can't believe how much time it takes to keep up with the AI trends that are going on.
We're going to dig into that in just a bit, but I want to step back into time here. The Volkswagen bug by the river. So for starters, why did you choose to pursue law when you ended up in technology? We do understand the transition over here, but that's probably the second part of the question. What was the driver to be a JD?
Since I was a little kid, I was kid number 5 and my brothers and sisters were much older than me. I was the little kid around my brothers and sisters at their high school parties. And the only way I was able to not get knocked around too much was be quick on a comeback. Someone just started and planted a seed, says, you should be a lawyer. You're a wise ass. You should take that to law. So whatever, be very careful around your children and telling them what might happen, because I ended up going down the route of law school, even though I am an engineer geek, but I didn't know that. So at that point I said, I guess I got to do liberal arts. So I went and studied everything with the plans of going into law school. In law school, I realized that I don't really like lawyers, other than I married one from law school, but everyone else, I'm not a fan of that. Whereas everything in technology is just, it's fun. So I'm an engineer at heart without any engineering degrees.
Did you enjoy technology as a child, like before the quick-wittedness and the Vincent LaGuardia Gambini row to law school? Nothing with technology at all growing up?
No, I was terrible in math. I think I cheated my way through high school. I hope no one, the cheating police, you're not listening to that. So no, I didn't think that I had the smarts or what was necessary to go into engineering. So I just completely discounted it. And that it was a mistake, major mistake.
5th of 5 kids. Were your parents involved in technology at all?
No.
What route did your other siblings take?
My eldest is civil engineer, oldest brother, and then my younger brother is an entrepreneur, and my 2 sisters were, no, they were in other areas, not in technology. So I was the first to go to law school, and then the second to become an engineer, if you will.
Oh, that's certainly a very interesting journey. So you get done with law school. Of course, you're fairly potentially close to your family.
Yeah, very close.
And you've spent a lot of money, you spent a lot of time in pursuing that career and or the degree. How were those conversations? Mom, dad, brothers and sisters, I've gone this route, but I'm not going to pursue this.
Some people say, I want to dance. You're like, I want to be a geek.
Yeah, mom and dad didn't pay for any of that. Actually, mom and dad sent me off to college with $50 and said, don't spend it all at once. It was all on my dime.
Hence the
van. The van. Thus, the reason I was homeless was because I was self-funding all of this along the way. And I should back up. In college, just to give you an idea, I am a little bit of a risk taker. I moved to Amsterdam on a one-way ticket and $300 my 3rd year of college to go live in Europe. And I worked at Rick's Cafe in the red light district and was able enough to generate enough money to eat, to live, to travel, and then actually buy a plane ticket home.
That's certainly an interesting story.
What we've discovered so far is that Scott Charter is a maniac. And look, I think that's something that entrepreneurs share. Like, you have to be a little bit crazy to take a risk on yourself and follow like a kind of an unwalking road. So presumably the decision to go to EchoStar was driven entirely by needing to earn some money, right? Because you couldn't,
Absolutely.
You couldn't do anything without a little bit of coin in your pocket. But when you go from, what is the experience within EchoStar that kind of drives you to decide that you're going to go off on your own? Like, where is that spark that turns you into an entrepreneur?
Actually, there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the cable systems business, at least in the early 90s. So I saw a lot out there of folks that were being able to go say, let's go put up a wireless system in Bolivia or whatever. And wow, that sounded exciting. I had a large company behind me, but I was able to see how entrepreneurs were doing business with EchoStar. My coolest story was there was a guy that came out of Lagos, Nigeria that was doing business and came into headquarters in EchoStar. I received him in the waiting room. Hey, how are you doing? And he starts to pull out like $100,000 that was strapped to his chest that he brought over because he needed to buy equipment. It's crazy.
Wow. Wow.
I don't know.
Well,
That just got me going.
I guess we didn't have those sensors at immigration visualization back then.
I'm looking at the EchoStar. I'm just looking at your LinkedIn, right? Because I have some people have like research departments. We have LinkedIn. So in between EchoStar And this Rhythms is something that sounds really cool to me. This coast to coast adventures in Costa Rica. What is that?
Second year law school, I'm a tree hugger, and River Conservation International wanted to send someone down to help work on saving a rainforest with the Pequari River rainforest. And while down there, I met two river guides, a Dutchman and a Canadian, both married to Costa Rican ladies. And they're like, hey, we got a raft. I'm like, hey, I got a bike. So we started this company. And back then it was not coast to coast. We were called Pirate Tours because the locals called us Las Piratas because we didn't have any paperwork. So we were the gypsies, and we ran mountain biking and river trips down the Pequari River and around it. And by the way, the company is still in business, and we have 56 employees, but it nets out about $713 a year. So it's not a big money maker, but it keeps all these Costa Rican people employed, and it's got all the toys. So it was cool. But what I learned from it is, if you love to travel, don't be in the travel business. Sell diamond. Let me take it back. If you love peanuts, don't sell peanuts. Sell diamonds. Make enough money to go buy all the peanuts that you need. But if you sell peanuts, you'll never be able to afford your own peanuts.
Oh, that's brilliant. Very much like Richard Branson's thinking. That's how Virgin Atlantic got started. So when you started your first venture, okay, not the coast to coast, but your first real diamonds venture, you married at that point in time.
I was. And I had a staying spouse, wonderful lady that pulled me off of the homeless situation that I was in out of my VW bus. But I loved that bus. She was supportive. And that's a tough jump for a lot of people to say, how can I go risk something? But luckily we were pre-kids and it made sense. But I remember actually closing one of my largest first deals while my wife was in the delivery room with kid number one. And I'll say, if anyone's out there and thinking about the entrepreneurship, it's great. Revenue is good. But on Christmas morning, when all of my staff around the world were opening presents with their family, I was taking tier 1, tier 2 support questions when there were outages. Entrepreneurship is not as cool as it looks from the outside. There's a lot of work on the inside.
There's a reason why you have to be crazy, right? Because it's the buck stops with you. And that accountability element of it is the part that people kind of discount. I assume you're talking about WBS, right? That was the first real kind of adventure, right? So I know WBS because I've been in this business for as long as this has been a business to be in. And WBS was like one of the original, I guess you would call it a tier 2 kind of network, right? Where you had ports from the kind of top tier providers and then you resold connectivity downstream. Is that fair?
With VLAN tags. So we use switches. So we put switches out instead of routers so that we could avoid those router hops. And we built
the original SDN. Can we say that before SDN was a thing? Scott Charter invented the software defined networks.
I was lucky enough to have some other people in the New York area that helped me with that. Yes. I'm not here to name names or drop names, but there are some people that we all know that helped my company grow.
That's very humble of Scott.
Yeah, it's very humble of Scott. By the way, the outtakes of this thing will be us getting drunk, talking about all those names and where they went. I'm always interested in is the perspective from which these ideas are born. So you are an account manager at Quest, which is a kind of network provider, tier 1, carrier, CLEC, whatever you want to call it. And then you see an opening in the market right at the time, like post bubble bursting time frame, where the internet is starting to rebuild from the ashes of burst balloons. And what was it that you saw from your position on the inside that drove you to start WBS?
I was on the major accounts team and I had 5 accounts that I had to go sell Quest into. And guess what? All 5 of them hated Quest and they didn't want, so I was stuck with selling one product. So what that got me is to say is I really want to go into the Baskin Robbins business of IT. What if I could go get contracts from 30 different providers? And if you don't like Quest, great. Let me show you AT&T or let me show you Sprint and deliver it all without any bias as to what product you needed. That was the impetus of that.
And I think what the through line there is, what we try to tell to these audiences of students that we speak to is that the real commodity that they have, the real product that they bring to the marketplace is their own kind of lived experience and personality and relationship capability. Any of these companies, no, you hate Quest, people on this side, as we saw from my issues when we were first connecting, Verizon is not like it in everyone's wish list of companies to do business with, or Spectrum or any of those big companies. You're the strongest link in a chain is the person who you're dealing with on the other side of the phone. So it is that relationship with any vendor that you have. And if you saw your ability to, if you could sell Quest that everybody hates and people are only buying it because you convinced them to do, or you were able to allow them to tolerate using Quest. Imagine what you could do if you had this bag of any provider that they can choose deterministically. And that is, to me, a very real kind of self-aware realization that a lot of people don't see when they're in the bubbles of doing their job, and they don't realize that the product that they're selling is just that. It's a product, but really the magic is them and the way they are interacting with the people that they're communicating with. And I'm wondering if there was something that pointed that out, some experience other than the fact that everybody hated Quest.
By the way, I want to find out, Lumen, great company, acquisitions galore. But at the time, what I was talking about was the ILEC, the independent local exchange company that people they didn't like their local phone company.
And nobody does. Everybody hates Congress, but everybody re-elects their own congressman. It's the exact opposite in the ILEC world.
Relationships are how things go. So that all grew. But like I said, going back to as a kid, I was a hustler as a kid because my parents didn't have any money for that. So I had a paper route. I knew how to hustle. When you have your own company with no budget, you go to events in ITW, but you don't have the money to get in. So I printed up $20 bills with WBS Connect specials on the back. I put it at the bar, and I put out hundreds of these $20 bills everywhere as a way of guerrilla marketing to get people to call me. And you just find a way to start getting into a conversation for someone and saying, what's your headache? What can I do for you today? And if I solve that from you, would you be willing to take a shot? Because that was nice of you to say a tier 2. When we started, I was a tier 19 operator and I had to work my way up.
I think that hustle is incredibly valuable. And again, the pitch of Nomad Futurist is you don't need to be a computer person. You don't need to be a geek to make an impact in our industry. You just need to be someone that can understand the perspective of how these things are used and how people leverage them and how you can help bridge the gap between need and opportunity.
But I can't guarantee you won't become a geek once you fall in love with what you're doing. So I am now a geek by choice, not by birth.
You're certainly very passionate.
Converted. You're
converted geek.
I'm a converted, yeah.
A born again geek.
Scott, tell us about your kids. Are they in the tech space? Any interest whatsoever? How's that going?
I have 2 boys, 21 and 23. The 23-year-old is not a Luddite, but isn't really diving in on technology. He's more into the sciences, aquaculture, botany, about to take off he's an elementary school teacher, about to go teach middle school science in New Zealand. So he's about to move to New Zealand. Kid number 2 is graduating this May in a double major, quantitative sciences and business information systems. So I take him to NVIDIA GTC a couple weeks ago because he's listening to his dad while he's opening presents as a 3-year-old on Christmas doing tier 1 support. And we're navigating, talking to my colleagues at GTC and this or that. He's listening in on a couple of meetings and he pulls me aside and he goes, Dad, I didn't know you were that technical. It was like the best compliment that kid could have ever given me.
Oh, Dad, I didn't know you were that smart. Brilliant. That's awesome. So sounds like that he's actually interested in coming to the sector then.
Yeah. So he did some time on Wall Street last summer and he's looking to get into quantitative sciences and finance.
Brilliant. That's awesome. So what's your role at Oracle besides reading a lot of research and keeping up with artificial intelligence and cloud services?
Just think of this for a second. The fact that a guy that was in a van in law school with no technical ability at all is now the director of AI strategy for Oracle. Of all, just like the name, even Oracle is crazy. But Oracle is like the pinnacle of kind of enterprise grade technology that companies are reliant upon. And if anything shows that passion dictates where we go, I think the Scott Charter story seems to do it.
And he's surrounded with other people that are much smarter than you. So I'm lucky. One of the guys that I work with at Oracle that just blows my mind, he's working on his 2nd PhD in AI right now. Once again, we're on a public channel. I'm not just going to go name names, but I've got some people around me that make me look much smarter than I am.
Again, tune in for the outtakes. I'm not sure there will be outtakes, but I just want people to search for it online.
So why did you, or how did you end up picking up artificial intelligence and cloud as your go-to in your current capacity? There are potentially a lot of other options as well, like you can potentially stay within the telco realm. Was there a particular driver that got you excited to do what you're doing now?
I remember selling capacity in the '05s period and saying, I knew cloud was coming. So seeing trends is something that I'm good at, is being able to spot trends. So I spotted where we were with AI well before ChatGPT came out, or probably after just landing upon attention is all you need in 2017. When I read that paper, I knew I wanted to follow AI. So that's what got me. It was just following trends.
So for those that are not in the space, do you think the part of it is derivative because of knowledge? There is a gut feel to it. There has been technologies in the past that have actually been mind-blowing and they have not resonated and have not been monetized. So
So I think some of this is just follow your gut and some of this is luck, because I could have followed Betamax to the chagrin of my investment advisor. That would not have been good. I was lucky enough to just pick a couple that happened to be a good area to go into.
You have this amazing experience of the bulk of your career being in companies that you founded, which is ultimate accountability and the missed Christmases where you're taking tier one support, or not even missed, but just there, but keeping a foot in both worlds. What is that transition like? Oracle is a giant corporation. So what is it like being on the corporate side of the world at this stage? Is it different? Do you like it differently? Is it more relaxing, less relaxing?
When I came into OCI, think of OCI as like the startup inside of a more corporate bureaucracy. I love startup mentalities, and I happened to get into a group that was very dynamic. I could have possibly gotten into another group that was very top down, micromanaged, and I would have left. But I was lucky enough to get into a group that allowed me to do my thing. And for that, when you're working hard on your own, you come into an organization with 150,000 plus employees. At first, you don't have to work as hard, but then you start to say, where else can I go help someone? Because I got some free time, because it takes 16 people to decide what we're going to have for lunch at this big organization. So by then going out, and here's another thing that's like some tip that I would say, find a way to go help people, and givers gain. And I know that sounds a little cheesy, but if you go out of your way to make, someone's life a little bit easier, they're going to remember you. And I've been able to do that. And that has allowed me to get access to more things to do inside the company, because I was able to prove that I helped someone out.
that's amazing. You and I had a conversation in Hawaii, and we just talked about it briefly as well, the future of technology. So based on the trends that you've experienced in the past, based on the decisions that you've made thus far, we've got these crazy visions of where the technology is headed. Space, we're there. Moon, not that far off. Space colonization, that's a thing that's no longer just a mystery or fiction. We are very close to it. Where do you see we are going to go within the next decade, 2, 3, potentially?
So we're going to continue to do what we're doing on planet Earth, of course, as we find new energy sources in order to support this massive demand. So I'm seeing great trends on where are we going with energy? How can we not just follow everyone else's lead on what seems to be the logical next step in energy there? So I believe there's great trends there, but we also, to your point, space is our future, right? Not go west, young man, but go to outer space, young man, or young women as well. And I believe that our space economy is something to keep an eye on. And instead of going and trying to go dig for gold, go find ways to go sell shovels.
Brilliant. So do you really think it's like a crazy dream, like the internet bubble? Everyone's going to be connected by 2050, roughly about 9.4 billion people, 9.7 billion people. That's a projection. Do you think we're going to have everyone connected? Do you believe that we're going to have data centers in the space, Mars, Moon, potentially within the next 25 years?
I won't bet against Elon here, because I don't care where anyone is on your politics schedule. You all got to look at what's happened and go, wow, that's amazing. And as we see mining for asteroids as a profitable way for rare minerals that we don't always have access to in different parts of Earth, yet another thing, once you start seeing all of this additional business, when you've got Blue Origin, SpaceX, Rocket Labs, et cetera, all of the list of that economy is expanding. So I definitely see a data center in this lunar orbit and then on the moon. And I'll have you guys interview someone else at a later date without giving away too much, but let it be known there's some really interesting projects going on with this idea of data center on the moon.
Watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. Watch this space.
Yeah.
You are, look, AI obviously it takes up the bulk of what you do. You have a lot of folks that are trying to extol some of the concerns associated with putting a framework around how AI is leveraged. You have data sovereignty elements to it. You have AI in general as a construct, exploiting not just making things easier, but also making the problems with society potentially faster and stronger and quicker. Do you have any concerns or thoughts around some of those concerns in terms of, are we to police ourselves? Are these companies to police themselves? Are there ground rules that should be created? And is that something that is on your radar in terms of how people are leveraging AI and whether the machines are going to take over sooner than later?
I'd recommend some books. Henry Kissinger, Eric Schmidt, Craig Mundy came out with a great book, Genesis, just recently. Mustafa Suleiman, The Next Wave, The Wave is Coming. I'm trying to remember that book. I've got a dozen of these books that I've read on this. And where I'll go with that is, instead of making you all have to go read them all, is realize that there's a lot of thought leaders looking at this and realizing we can't wait for the government to write the line of what it should look like. We're moving so much faster than they are. We really need regulation to catch up, but we definitely need some regulation here. Am I worried about the existential crisis of what might happen? I'm more of a Jan LeCun than I am of a Jeffrey Hinton. For those that don't know, Jan LeCun, Jeffrey Hinton, and Joshua Bardino are known as the three godfathers of AI. They won the Turing Award in 2018. Jeff Hinton just won the Nobel Prize in physics for his work here. Jeff Hinton and Joshua are really concerned about that. Others in that space, Dario, Anthropic CEO, also concerned there. Jan LeCun, chief scientist at Meta for AI research, is more of an optimist. I'm in his wagon. We need to be careful and smart about how we come together, but let's not hold back out of fear.
I think you make a great point. There's no substitute for human intelligence and or education. So if we stay in front ahead of it by educating people and creating this as muscle memory to do things for the right reasons, we'll be all right. As long as the tech doesn't get into the bad hand or people that could be easily manipulated. I think history has proven that over centuries, that it's the manipulation element and the lack of education and awareness is what's resulted us into issues that we currently face.
The box is open. We're not going to slow this down. It's happening. So we know that we're on a roller coaster ride. You can either enjoy it or be scared out of your mind. It's really your perspective on that, how you handle this ride. And I would like us all to embrace this and realize it's coming. And if you don't know that it's coming, it is dramatically about to change the economy of planet Earth.
Brilliant. So Scott, based on your experiences, based on your passion of technology and paying it forward, what would you tell the younger Scott Charter? What would you do differently, if anything?
Don't just assume that people told you needed to do something. Be willing to get a little uncomfortable. I can't believe I'm about to say this. I don't think that everyone needs to go to college. That's not where you need to go waste 4 years. If you're ready for college and that's where you're going to go, great. But you might find that there's another better use of your time that could be even more economically profitable for you. I'm a big fan of learning though, so don't get me wrong. I think we should all be students always, but there are opportunities in the technology space that don't always require a college education. Maybe it's a trade. If you're really mechanical, there is such an opportunity just in being a plumber or an electrician and doing great things there. And there's a lot of need for that. However, keep an eye on AI. Use it as much as you can now. You know, if you haven't heard of perplexity, go figure out what that is and find a way to use it. It's not something to cheat your time with, but rather to get yourself used to using technology that is about to change us all.
Yeah, I think the thing that strikes me the most is this concept of AI is used to put process around data. And really what we need to focus on, where we're going to be able to be the most valuable, is not thinking, but thinking about how we think and it's all about trying to manipulate the inputs so that we can not focus on what the outcome of a particular equation is, but what the overarching thing that we're trying to accomplish is. So learning how to think, critical thinking is always like the big skill that we still. And I think your words are a lesson not just to students out there that might not necessarily know if they want to go to university that's on their path or not, but to corporations that have these outdated metrics through which they hire people that require arbitrary levels of education that are not necessarily relevant to what the best outcome is for the employees that they bring in. And that has always fascinated me for some time. I think with AI, it's even more, but I graduated college in the year 2000. I started what still exists as an internet company. It's evolved over time in 1996. So during that time, the stuff that we were doing, the stuff that that is not something you could even learn in college. So college to me was valuable in that it gave me the kind of social experience of having a kind of unaccountable social experiment. I'm out there. Nobody is forcing me to do anything. And can I survive these 4 years without really being able to get myself in trouble, like huge trouble, theoretically? I'm sure that there were ways I could find to get myself into trouble. How do you get out of this corporate methodology of requiring a 4-year degree just because it's always been required?
So when I started in WBS Connect, I needed to find some smart people to help me along. And I recruited my director of IT out of the Apple Genius Bar. He had a high school education. It was probably one of the best hires I ever had in my company. No college degree. And now works at AWS. Great. So I remember one of post-law school, post-rhythms, not looking at some companies that I wanted to get involved with and being turned down because they said, oh, you don't have 7 years of telecom experience? You don't know what the difference is between an OC3 and an OC12? We can't hire you. So I didn't get hired there. And I remember being so frustrated to say, why do I need to show that I have 5 years of pigeonholing this into that box when what you really need is people that are just going to be able to think around the box or outside of the box.
So just for firms that are looking to hire people, hire for potential, not necessarily credentials.
Absolutely. I would much rather hire someone that is a hustler or is a smarty pants thinking this way or that way, even though they don't have any real world experience. The experience we can train.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key takeaway really is, and what we have observed, like 99% of people that have actually been on this platform over the last 6 years, they have fallen into the space purely by an accident, and they're extremely passionate about what we do and where we're heading as it entails to the future. And another key takeaway is that degrees for what we went to school or college and unis for are not necessarily what we are doing. There aren't computer engineers, computer scientists in plenty of leadership positions today that are running the mission critical or the data infrastructure environment. So to your point, college degrees are potentially valuable for certain skill sets and or certain subject matter experts, but people need to be open and treat it as like ever and constant learning. It's not just one
the
and
concept
done.
of lifelong learning is so valuable and so understated. The idea that school is something you go to from pre-K through the year you graduate college or the year you graduate high school is absurd. And it is not compatible with a world that continues to evolve. One of the genesis of the Nomad Futurist Foundation is this concept that the educational system hasn't been updated since it was formed, right? We can teach how individual things work, but we are really bad about incorporating the concepts of why they all work, in large part because teachers are not incentivized to innovate. And there's a huge bureaucracy in changing lesson plans and state requirements around specific things that are no longer relevant to society. It's why societies in general, individual regions, tend not to appreciate digital infrastructure investment, because the metrics that they're looking, the KPIs around which they gauge whether there is environmental benefit or economic benefit rather, is completely out of touch with what, a modern economy is based on. I don't know.
If I were talking to anyone that's out there for hiring or things like that, I know some of the things I want to look for is how good are you at being at a scavenger hunt? If you're good at a scavenger hunt, or tell me if you've ever crashed a wedding and had to pretend you're someone else, or If you remember the movie Catch Me If You Can, that Leonardo DiCaprio movie, I know he pretended to be an airline pilot and a surgeon. If someone can show me that they're able to do things like that's the type of person I want on my team. I want to make sure they're honest and good people. I don't want all these nefarious felons that have figured out ways around, but I like people that know how to think outside of the box. The rest will train.
Brilliant.
Although, that being said, the best way to find a counterfeit bill is to hire the person that is best at creating a counterfeit bill.
It's the $20 bill. Scott, what message would you have for the younger generation?
There is so much opportunity out there if you're curious, and follow your gut. Sometimes that means you got to get outside of your comfort zone a little bit. But if you're willing to do that, there is so much more opportunity if you're willing to leave that little town that you came from. If you're from Ottumwa, Iowa, your world is not just Ottumwa, Iowa. Radar O'Reilly, MASH, came from Ottumwa, Iowa. It's a big world out there. So much to see.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. This has been absolutely amazing. I think we can talk forever and ever, especially as far as the future of tech is concerned. We might have to have you come back again, but really do appreciate you being a part of the foundation and the initiative and spreading the word and being an advocate for us.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Scott.
Thank you for joining us on the Nomad Futurist podcast. Remember, technology, markets, and challenges will continue to evolve, but those who adapt and prepare are the ones who will thrive. Embrace the change, stay curious, and let's build a future worth moving towards. The journey has just begun, and we're glad you're here with us. Visit us anytime at media.nomadfuturist.org to stay connected and be a part of the movement. Until next time, keep exploring.